Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. Trevor Lane here. You can follow me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, over on Instagram at Trevor Lane NBA, joined by Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA on the Twitter machine. We still haven't figured out what his burner Instagram account is. Maybe someday we'll figure that one out.
Nope.
But we've got a lot of NBA basketball to talk about. Some pretty good games went on last night. We've got a lot of news and notes from around the NBA. But Keith, I guess let's start things out with the hot topic on my mind anyway. We'll get into another game right after this. But the Grizzlies and the Wolves played last night. Yet another, again, to go good old JR, another slobber knocker. These two teams going right after each other. And the Wolves, is this a mental thing now where the Wolves seem to give away leads in the fourth quarter? They tense up. Looks like they don't believe they can actually close the game out.
I think we're seeing with the Wolves, this is that lack of big game experience coming into play. We said it before the playoffs that Memphis wouldn't mind Minnesota because it's one of the few teams with less playoff experience that they had of potential opponents. And they are, it's struggle city for them late in these games. And it's weird too, because they've got guys that should be able to create good looks. It's extreme. I put this on Twitter, but it's extremely frustrating to watch. Memphis is doing it to them to an extreme, but just switch a small on the Towns and then just watch to the corner.
Dylan Brooks.
The action goes the other way. Dylan Brooks, Desmond Bane, even John Morant on occasion. Like, get down inside. If for no other reason, at least you're down in there, like, ready for a rebound or drop off pass or whatever. So that part's a little frustrating. But outside of that, I put it on radio today. I said, this is not necessarily the best basketball we're seeing played, because there are times it is horrible basketball, but this is the most fun and exciting first round series. It's not even close. And that's why I said that last night after it ended, I was like, petition to make this a best of 9. Because, I think, unless you're a Grizzlies or Wolves fan, I think you'd probably pretty much enjoy that. So yeah, man, it's been a blast. And you're seeing the star players make those star plays, which is pretty cool too.
I mean, John Morant scoring at the death there. Anthony Edwards going for the steal. Yikes. Don't do that. But
yeah, you can't. If you're going to do that, you have to come up with that steal. Otherwise, you want Josh shooting a jump shot. He's a much improved jump shooter, but you can't just give him the runway there to take off, because he's gonna finish it or get fouled or whatever. It's just not gonna go well for you.
No, it's definitely not, and that's what we saw. That's how it played out. John Morant winds up getting the bucket, and on the other end, we had seen good defense by Desmond Bane on D'Angelo Russell, who forced a bad miss. John Morant comes and scores on the other end, and the Grizzlies take the win despite being down. They were down pretty big, but at this point, the Grizzlies can't feel like they're out of any game. We've seen them come back against this Wolves team in the fourth quarter pretty consistently. So even if the Wolves have, if it's a 15-point lead going into the fourth, I am not turning off that game, because the Grizzlies are going to make a run.
What was it, 24 or 26 or whatever? They wiped out the other game. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's just, it's been one of those where if you can turn off which I know kind of gets hard for us sometimes, because I think we've both progressed to the point where we've kind of sort of become basketball snobs at times. If you can turn that part off and just enjoy it for what it is, which thankfully I am in general still able to do, it is it's been so much fun. With this, just to the back and forth and some of the quite frankly stupidity adds to it too, right? Sure. Because it's like, what crazy thing is going to happen today?
Stop fouling Jaren Jackson Jr. I mean, stuff like that.
Such a foul machine. It's that's my worry past this round for them. I think the Grizzlies are going to get through this series, whether it's in 6 or it's in 7. I'm worried about them going up against, I think it'll probably be Golden State. They're going to go at him, and he's just going to do dumb stuff that's going to have him off the floor for large chunks of key minutes when you really need him, because they have their best chance to match that Golden State small lineup is to go small themselves and put Jackson at the 5 and match,
Mm-hmm.
Draymond at the 5. And I'm worried about that being the way it comes together for them because of the foul trouble. Like, I think we're going to get a lot of Brandon Clark, Xavier Tillman, maybe even Kyle Anderson minutes at the 5 because he's going to be on the bench and in foul trouble. And yes, I did just throw dirt on the Denver Nuggets. Sorry, Nuggets fans. I think it's over tonight. I don't think this one's going back to Denver. And yeah, I think Memphis is going to beat Minnesota, despite the fact that I'm hoping for 7. That's what I'm hoping for now out of that one.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm hoping for game 7, but I have this kind of gut feeling that Memphis is going to win it in 6 here, but we'll see what happens. We should mention, you said that the Denver Nuggets are probably going to be done tonight. I agree with that. The Atlanta Hawks were indeed done last night, falling to the Miami Heat. A Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry-less Miami Heat get the job done against the Hawks. Maybe no surprise here in terms of the ultimate winner being the Heat, but are you surprised at all that the Heat managed to pull it off despite missing 2 key guys like Lowry and Butler?
Yeah, it was a little bit. I thought, Atlanta was going to get there, and then Atlanta, there was a point where it looked like it was done, and they weren't, and then they made a nice little run to get back into it, and then they completely botched the end game.
My gosh.
Yeah, that whole last couple of sequences for them. They had Trae Young, not in the last sequence, but before, picked up his dribble with like 40 feet from the basket for no reason, with no pressure on him, which was very odd. And then, then that Gallinari shot was messy, and then they couldn't get the shot off in the corner after the review. I'm kind of glad I was done with them. Like, go away now and figure stuff out this off season, because they've got work to do. They cannot just run it back with the same roster. You've got to figure out a way to start improving things. DeAndre Hunter, though, 35 points for him. But the story of the night for me was Victor Oladipo for the Heat. Really hadn't been playing at all. But it kind of talked about how it was tough, but his job is to stay ready, and he appreciates Miami, sticking with him and helping him get back and all that stuff. And boy, did he pay back that with some appreciation. Big game for him in place of Jimmy Butler. Big day, man. And in the Heat, depth for days, and now they'll get a couple extra days off here to get their guys right, because we'll see when how far the Philly-Toronto series goes. If you're Miami, you're hoping that goes 7, and you can get as much time off as you can get and just kind of relax. But yeah, it's we're now into it where it's going to be we've got some fun stuff shaping up here for Miami. They're going to be tough, man, the rest of the way, just because of the way they defend, and then their depth that just allows them to get through this stuff. I'll say one last quick thing on it too. I saw a lot of people saying, like, can you believe they just rested Jimmy Butler in a playoff game? That is not what happened. You don't rest guys in playoff games. No, teams don't do that. They want to get these games closed out. Like, clearly something was bothering him enough that he missed the game. Kyle Lowry missed the game. But now, again, you've got a few days at least at a minimum to get off your feet, get healed up, and be ready to go for round 2.
Our buddy Mark Stein put out late last night on one of his Substack posts that last year a lot of people were talking about the number of injuries in the playoffs, and there were essentially, I believe the number he said was 10 major injuries or significant injuries to teams in the playoffs last year, and this year we're already at 7, and this is only the first round. Yikes! That's not great.
Let me rephrase this. I know every single person that I have talked to in the NBA is beyond thrilled to be back to the normal calendar finally, because they're going to get the full off season. Even if you make the finals, you're going to be done at the end of June, and then you're not coming back to the gym until September. There's no Olympics. There's no some of these guys. I think some of these guys are really starting to run on fumes, and I think it's really impacted some of the older players. Because if you look at a lot of these injuries, it's some of the guys who they've got some been around for a while. You're starting to see, those are the guys who are starting to slow down a little bit. So, I think that is really important that we, thank goodness we're back to the normal calendar. I know you and I like it just for other selfish reasons,
Yes.
just as far as lining up some time off with the family and the like. But it really is. We're very happy for this.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be, well, it's good and bad. I've mentioned on here before, I stress more when there's not enough stuff going on.
Sure.
So that's going to be the bad. When we hit the droughts in terms of the NBA, and for my side of things, we're in one right now already. But in any event,
Yeah.
we're we
Well, you can start previewing second round picks,
yeah,
right?
we can start talking about that. That's
Yeah,
always
there
fun.
it
Um, you mentioned the Raptors and the 76ers. I am rooting for chaos here. Going back to Toronto for
Oh
game
yeah.
6. Let's go Raptors. Let's get this thing to a game 7 and maybe see NBA history. Not that I'm against the Philadelphia 76ers. I don't truly have a dog in the fight here, but just to see
Sure.
something that we haven't seen before. A team has not blown a 3-0 series lead ever. This is now
And if there was one to do
right.
it,
And now if the Raptors win game 6, and I don't know that they can, I mean, no Fred VanVleet, that's most likely anyway. That's certainly a concern. But if the Raptors can somehow get game 6, oh boy, game 7 is going to be a lot of fun.
yeah, I think we're gonna get an all time crowd tonight there in Toronto. I think they're gonna be absolutely bananas.
It's tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. Yes, sorry, I'm all.
It
off.
feels like it should
so
be tonight in terms of the rhythm of this
It
series.
should be.
It
Yeah,
should
they
be
got
tonight.
the extra day off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll share, with everybody watching and listening here what I shared with Trevor. I was up extremely late after the Celtics Nets game till almost 4 a.m. on Tuesday morning. After that game ended, just doing different stuff, and quite frankly, I was probably a little energy pumping, with that. And that's had me now thrown off for 2 days because that's how old I am. I cannot stay up like that anymore and then recover. You remember the days where you could stay up all night, take a 2-hour nap, and you were ready to go? Like I can't do that anymore.
Yep.
Like I stay up that late. It's like put me down for the count for the next day, and then maybe I'll rebound. So yeah, it's bad. So that's why I'm off on my days. But yes, Thursday night. I think we're getting an all-time crowd in Toronto. They love that team so much, and they want nothing more to send that to a game 7. Send it to a game 7, we're gonna get an all-time tense crowd in Philly.
It's gonna be nervous
because you're gonna be sitting there. Yeah, exactly. You're gonna be kind of like a 5-0 run is gonna feel like it's a 25-0 run, in a game just because you're gonna be that worried. So yeah, it's let's see where this one goes, because this is we could be having a lot of fallout come if this goes a certain way here.
Philly is a 1.5 favorite going into this one, game 6 tomorrow night.
I guess that makes sense.
I could see that.
I'm worried about Embiid.
Yeah.
He said after, I don't know if it was right after the game or maybe it was yesterday, but he said it's bothering him when he's passing and rebounding. That's when the thumb is bothering him most.
It's bothering me when I play basketball, right? I mean, that's...
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, those are only, 2 of the, 4 most important skills in the game. So, I'm worried that this is bad. And it doesn't seem like one of those things that's, it's not going to get better. And I know they said it can't really get worse, but I don't know, man. It's your thumb on your shooting hand. I do worry about that. And it's funny because I'll get accused of, right, you hate the Sixers, you're a Celtics guy. I don't want anybody to get hurt. I want to see everybody out there, playing full strength and, go through it. So yeah, I'm worried because it didn't look good, the other night. He looks all sorts of off his game.
And that's what we've been saying. If he's not 100%, that changes things quite a bit for Philadelphia, and I think that's where the 1.5 point favorite for being the Sixers makes some sense here. So the Raptors definitely have a shot at getting this done. Speaking of having a shot, though, in terms of teams that probably have none, the Bucks a 12-point favorite to finish the Bulls season tonight. Zach Levine and Alex Caruso, both of them out. Zach Levine due to health and safety protocols. So, I mean, I pretty confidently can say the Bulls are going to conclude their season tonight.
Yeah, this would be like the upset of all upsets if Chicago pulls this off tonight. Now they do have Scott Foster on the
Oh,
way to maybe, the extender maybe is there to help things out, but I don't know that that's gonna. I don't know that that's enough to get it done. I have a feeling this might be. It's halftime, and Giannis Antetokounmpo has 38 points and 12 rebounds, and the Bucks are up by 25, and then we see a cameo appearance in the second half, and that's it. Like this might be one of those where they just absolutely blow their doors off. So we're in agreement on that. What do you think, Warriors Nuggets? We think that this is on tonight.
Yeah,
too?
I think Warriors win. I think both series close out tonight.
Yeah,
And
agreed. I just always think when the home team gets home with a 3-1 lead, they do not want to go back on the road.
And Warriors are a 9-point favorite in this one. And I think we saw elements of this last night. Obviously not the same situation for the series, but the Suns, they come back home. They were frustrated with the way they played in New Orleans. They came back home. They said, "Yeah, we're gonna prove it right now. We're the better team here." And they just held the Pelicans at arm's length the entire game. So there was a little bit of that kind of dynamic here. I think we're going to see the same thing tonight. I think the Warriors, the Bucks, they take it. They just say, you know what? We're not going to mess around here. We're taking care of business and enjoy Cancun.
Two veteran teams that have been there, done that too, right? So they know the benefit of, let's get these closed out. And I think two teams that also are, hey, then, Milwaukee's already got Boston sitting and waiting for them. And I think the Warriors are looking at it as like, hey, we may, that Grizzlies Minnesota game may go a little longer. Let's get the benefit of getting off our feet. Also knowing they're going on the road to start the next series too, because they're the 3 seed, same with Milwaukee. So yeah, we're both in agreement on those ones.
All right, let's get into some of our news from around the NBA. We talked about a few things here in this series. We'll get into one other two. We'll talk Dallas and Utah. In fact, let's go there first. Dallas and Utah. I mean, I think the Mavs probably close this thing out. But the good news, and it's kind of relatively good news, Donovan Mitchell is at least questionable to play. Hamstring MRI came back. He sounds like he is maybe able to go. We'll have to wait and see. A lot of times teams are not very forthcoming with this kind of information in playoff time, and rightfully so. But Donovan Mitchell, if he is able to play, I think that's obviously a big positive for the Utah Jazz. I still think the Mavs are going to close this thing out, though.
I do too. My guess is Mitchell gives it a shot early, and we'll know 3 to 5 minutes in if he's actually able to go or not. But yeah, I do think we'll see Dallas close this one on it. I don't like usually picking the road team in a closeout game because I think I think the home team it close out different if it's 3-0 or 3-1. But when it's in this position, Utah has a tough home court advantage. But I mean the way Dallas looked in game 5. To get up 3-2, I think they get this one finished off.
Agreed. I think that's what happens. But again, the news there being the hamstring for Mitchell. By the way, that was deja vu there for me. I feel like we already had that conversation about Donovan Mitchell and his hamstring and the Mavs and all of that.
Did we? We may have.
It's possible that we did at some point, but yeah, definitely. As we're talking about it, I'm like, whoa.
Maybe you dreamed.
Maybe
it's one of those things where you dreamed.
It was a glitch in the Matrix, I think.
It might have been multiverse. The multiverse.
Right, the multiverse. Speaking of which, this is an aside here, but
I love it.
With the new Doctor Strange poster that's come out.
Yes.
It's dawning on me because I've been looking at this thinking, okay, Baron Mordo is probably the big bad in this, maybe the Illuminati or whatever. It's dawning on me that no, it's Wanda. That's going to be the big bad in this movie. I think that's the way this is going to play out. And again,
there's definitely a chance.
I think that's the way she's going to start tearing apart reality, trying to get her kids back and stuff. I think that's what we might see play out in this one. And then that got me thinking, see, it all ties in. This is how my brain works. It goes back to basketball. Which team is actually the big bad right now? Because we went into the playoffs saying it's going to be the Suns very clearly coming out of the West. In the East, you've got, maybe the Nets are going to wind up being that team. They're going to finally show that star power and all that kind of stuff. Who is it that is really the big, bad, dominant presence right now in the playoffs that you think takes the whole thing at this moment?
It's a good question. I'm thinking I'm gonna say it's the Suns still, and part of the reason I'm gonna pick the Suns is because the favorite, right? They won the most games, all that stuff, and then everybody I think is getting kind of attached to these scrappy Pelicans that
Sure.
are running up and down and making things kind of tough, and then you have the Suns are they're let's just say they're not handling it real well. That they're being
Yeah.
challenged like this, which right, the bad guys they don't want to be challenged, right? It's like let me do my bad guy thing. Let me be my villainous plan. Let it go off without a hitch, and you stay off to the side. So yeah, that's a good question. Sorry, I went to thinking about Doctor
No, no,
Strange more
we
than
can
I did
get back to that
basketball
if you agree
actually.
with my theory there about Doctor Strange. But just my brain
Yeah,
jumped from when as I was thinking about, oh my
sure.
gosh, and then I went, well, wait, what does that mean? NBA, who is actually the big bad here too?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm gonna pick the
Okay,
Suns. That's who I'll go with for
I
now.
think I'm kind of starting to turn towards
Who's
the
you?
Warriors. I'm looking at
Yeah, could be.
they've been so good, or your Celtics, frankly, have been absolutely amazing. And so for me, they're always going to be kind of the big bad. But yeah, I think those teams are
Yeah, that's
interesting. Yeah,
biased talk. Come on
I
now.
know,
They're a lovable bunch. Come on.
lovable
Come
bunch.
on.
Yeah, no,
I know
they
you.
actually are. They're very fun to watch. As much as I hate to admit it.
Um
Um,
that's all right. You can edit that out later if you really
I
need
will
to.
cut right
It's
there.
okay.
But do you agree? Do you think?
All right, let's go back. I want to go back now to your Doctor
Yeah, well, we
Strange
need to talk about
thoughts.
that.
Sorry, we're going to do Marvel corner here for a minute. Um, I think you're right. I think how this. I have no inside information. I don't know anything. I've not read any
Yeah,
spoilers or anything. But there is I know there's a comics run where like essentially the Scarlet Witch goes
right. I think we're
crazy
gonna
and
see
like
that.
they all to fight her. I think they do a good job of not taking the exact comic
Hmm.
stories, but kind of adapting them to the MCU. I think my guess is how this plays out is Doctor Strange's whole thing with Spider-Man. Sorry if you haven't seen Spider-Man No Way Home yet, but
It's been out
you're
for a
too
while
late if
now.
you haven't
Yeah.
seen it. Yeah. You can fast forward, like hit the 30-second skip button twice if you're listening, or go a minute ahead. Um, I think what happens is Doctor Strange's whole thing with Spider-Man did not work the way they wanted it to.
Mm.
That's pretty clear,
Yeah.
right? From the trailers and that like something went wrong with this whole multiverse thing. He goes to Wanda like, "Hey, you're the most powerful person I know. I need help." And then that's where maybe she realizes like, oh, hey, I can do more. Or in this multiverse, my kids do
Yeah.
exist and Vision does exist. And then that's where it becomes like we have to put the wraps on this and get her back under control. And then that's kind of going to spring us forward into like the next phases of coming out of this. That's my guess is this is gonna really things are gonna go sideways on Doctor Strange.
And I wonder how many, I mean, because the possibilities become endless when you start getting into multiple universes and all
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. So do we see like the what if series? I feel like we've already seen some versions of Doctor Strange
yeah,
from
well, yeah,
that pop up,
absolutely. Yeah,
but
yeah,
who else pops
yeah.
up? Like, do we see like does
Yeah.
Captain Britain pop up from that series? Do we start to see that kind of
There's
stuff?
a one of the trailer
Uh-huh.
breakdowns. There's a part where like I think he's maybe in the mirror
Yeah.
dimension, and like it shatters, and there's like a shard of glass where you can apparently see um
Oh,
Haley Atwell's Peggy Carter, Captain Britain, like in the shard of glass. So, and one of the things I did read was a bunch of people were like, yeah, reorient yourself with what if in case you
yeah.
kind of just skip through that one, which I think a lot of people did that are Marvel fans. So that's on the list for us here in the Smith house to rewatch and maybe pay a little more attention to, because there's also 2 points where you see like evil Doctor
Yeah.
Strange. I don't know what the real comics
We
term
even
it
saw
is
there
for
was
him,
kind of a
him
zombie-ish Doctor
in a
Strange.
zombie
Yeah, that was
Strange too.
interesting.
Yeah, it looks so. Yeah, so I definitely think What If is gonna be a thing that factors in heavily into Doctor
Uh-huh.
Strange. So yeah, I'm psyched
Can't
though.
wait.
And we only two more Moon Knights
That's
left.
right. That's right. Man, I wish there were
Moon
more. But
Knights.
two more.
Yeah,
Again, I'm a big fan of it, so I can't wait to see more of
yeah,
that, even if not everybody is. Let's jump back to the NBA, though. I guess we'll get
yeah. We
back
should
on
probably
track. A
do
lot of
that.
people are probably
In theory, this is
an
a
NBA show, right?
NBA
And we'll have
related
some
show.
Marvel shows this summer. We'll do that, but The Cavs, just like we predicted, would like to bring Ricky Rubio back. And we said that was probably going to be a thing, that they would want to bring him back. Again, let him recover. And I mean, I don't know how much he's going to get, coming off of an injury, but still the Cavs wanting to bring Ricky Rubio back makes tons of sense. I think it was a good fit for him, and wouldn't be surprised if that's ultimately how this thing plays out.
Yeah, my guess is, so a couple things with this. Let me talk mechanics of this first, because people did ask this. They were like, but he just got traded. How can they re-sign him? And that's a great question, because we do drill that into ourselves, right? You can't, exactly, because he's a free agent. His contract is ending. He was not waived. Had the Pacers waived him, that would have triggered the whole 1 year waiting period. But because the Pacers kept him, they just let his contract expire. He can go back to Cleveland. My now thought process around him going back to Cleveland, what I think is, I have a feeling they're going to bring Colin Sexton back too, because I just don't think there's going to be the deal out there for him. And I think they also realize they need more on-ball creators. I think they learned that in the playing tournament. So I think what you're going to see is they bring back Sexton, and then you kind of muddle through the first few months of the season with Garland, Sexton, LeVert, Okoro. That's your kind of backcourt grouping. Then Rubio is allowed, work himself back, rehab back, and he gets back sometime, January, February-ish. And then he's in there now. Then by that point, he's coming back. You'll be able to, all right, do we need to trade somebody to fill a hole elsewhere? Do we need to rebalance our roster somehow? And then you've got Rubio kind of sliding in to take on those backup point guard minutes. And my guess is he'll get some chunk of the mid-level exception is how that'll work out for them, because a lot depends on what happens with Sexton and how much he's gonna get paid per year, how much they'll have to offer. But that'll be my guess, is they'll probably give him 5-6 million or something like that, and then that gets that's a good number to rehab half a season on, and then probably only a 1 year deal. And then that'll free up. If we want to do something after that, we still have bird rights, and we can figure it out down the line.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to see ultimately play out there. And not a bad move for the Cavs in my mind.
And let me rephrase that. They'd have early bird rights.
Sure.
I want to be clear, because he did get traded away and leave. So, but yes.
Let's jump over to your favorite guy, Kyrie Irving. Had some comments. I mentioned that after your Celtics eliminated the Nets, this comment was making the rounds. He said, "When I say I'm here with Kev," obviously talking about Kevin Durant, "I think that really entails us managing this franchise together alongside Joe and Sean." So Joe Tsai and Sean Marks. That raised a lot of eyebrows. Now, I mean, on one hand, it's no secret, like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving have a lot of power within that franchise, just like, I mean, look, LeBron James and Anthony Davis have a lot of power within the Lakers. It's not necessarily a unique situation there, but you also don't have these guys outwardly saying, "Oh yeah, I'm managing the franchise." So how did you, I'd imagine you felt a certain kind of way when you saw that comment.
Yeah, I mean, it's Kyrie Irving lives in a different multiverse than the rest of us do, I guess, to take it back to that. He's just a different kind of guy. And sometimes I think he says things without fully thinking them through or meaning them the way he says them sometimes. I think there is, much like with LeBron, which would make sense, right? He kind of learned at LeBron's heel, there's always a little more to the message in there. And the one that standing out to people, right? He doesn't mention Steve Nash in those comments. There's a lot of thought that he's not really on board with Steve Nash. Now, there has been reporting that Steve Nash expects to remain. Kevin Durant publicly has had Steve Nash's back. Durant was reportedly the one who really pushed for Nash to be the Suns coach. Nash was like his guy in Golden State. If we remember, Nash was working for the Warriors at the time, in a kind of official non-coaching role, but with the team. But here's a couple things to make sure we're clear, because of the type of show we do here. There's no such thing as a player coach
Right.
anymore because there's salary cap, CBA stuff that prevents that. There's certainly no such thing as a true general manager
Right.
player. This is not these are not the barnstorming teams of the 1950s, whereas the best player also was the coach and the GM and paid everybody and everything else. Probably drove the bus too and all this other stuff. There was none of that. But yeah, I mean, it's just like, I mean, he also said they don't need a coach, right? Like, so I think that is a whole other thing when he said that a couple years ago of like, yeah, we don't really need a coach. We have me and Kevin, and sometimes I'll be the coach, and it's just I don't know. It's I need to be better about letting the things he says go in one ear and go right out the other.
He also followed that up, I believe it was yesterday, he took to Twitter. Obviously, he was hearing that people were reacting to his comments and said, "Those who can build, those who can't criticize." Because, yes,
I was when I was in school getting my education degree. It was those who can do, those who can't teach, those who can't teach gym, those who can't teach gym coach, like. Which I always found extremely insulting because I did several of those things.
Oh, yeah, I was a teacher and a coach too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't really appreciate that comment, but yes, it's that was yeah. I mean, I mean, at least that was fairly straightforward. There's no mystery wrapped up in that one. It wasn't like trying to solve some riddle to figure out what he meant. Right. So. Yeah. Well, it's funny too because a couple people were like, oh, he was very. He put out a tweet just very much like, hey, congrats to the Celtics. I still love those guys over there and all that stuff. And people are like, oh, Kyrie, but think he has regrets and let's not go any further into congratulating the team. I do think this one we can just probably take for face value.
Yeah. All right, Ben Simmons. There are reports that those within the Nets organization were very disappointed and surprised that he decided not to play in Game 4. And apparently there are still mental hurdles to play. And we talked about this at length last show, so I don't want to get into it again. But I mean, just that there's news coming out that there really are some mental hurdles that are still challenging him and are preventing him from being on the floor. In addition to the physical, the back issues. So. Who knows how this is going to play out? I think this is going to become a major talking point in the next CBA negotiations in terms of how this ultimately gets handled. I mean, the ownership can't be super thrilled with the way this is going down, but again, you're kind of stuck in a tough spot where what can you really do, right? You either support him or you say that he's lying, and then that's a whole other can of worms. It's kind of a mess, and I hope that next season we can put all this behind us and you can get him out there on the floor because he is a very, very talented young player and would like to see him out there and playing.
Yeah, I think of when it just comes to him playing basketball again, and I don't mean to be insensitive to what he's going through, but I think of it as like a young, great player that suffers an injury and then is never the same or can't get back. That's the worst thing that happens, for a professional athlete. So I want him to get back. Like I just want to see him play basketball again because he is a. Does he have flaws? Yes. There's no perfect players. Magnified, sure, but we spend so much time on them that we skip the things he is incredibly good at, like defense, his passing, his ball handling, his versatility for a player his size. I have two other like quick thoughts on this is. There has to be a point where the conversation has to turn into if your chosen profession causes you this much mental challenges, anguish, stress, whatever it may be, we may need to rethink whether or not this should be your chosen profession. And that's possibly harsh, but it's I don't want to see him have to go through this if this is what he's choosing to do. And I realize that's easy because I'm not the one giving up hundreds of millions of dollars here, but that's really hard, right? On that part of it. The second part is you're absolutely right. There's going to be CBA stuff related to this. Whether it's specifically called out as Ben Simmons related or not, but I hope an understanding of, hey, players go through some stuff, and we should have programs and personnel and professionals and all this other stuff to support them through these hard times. Let's be positive about it, because there is going to be some of it is going to be pending this grievance hearing and this arbitration. It is going to be negative. There's going to be a lot of things that are thrown out there, but hopefully, some positives come out of it. And then the last thing that I'll say on this is, because I've seen some people be like, if he's going through this, so why is he saying it's his back? And I was doing some reading about this, and I actually have a friend, I won't call him out here because I don't have his permission to, but he goes through some stuff too. And then I've been doing reading online. One of the things that can happen is when you're going through extreme stress and mental anguish is, your body will react physically, and one of the most common ways to shut you down is for your back to lock up, tighten, stiffen, spasm, whatever it is. And one of the things that they believe it is it's your body's way of, right, if you hurt your foot, you can still limp around. If you hurt your arm, you can still function, right? You can still do things. But it's very hard to move in the ways you need to if your back is locked up, tightened up, whatever it is. And one of the things is they believe it's the mind's way of telling you physically, go find a place where you can relax, be still, find that calm, and get away from whatever it is that's doing it to you. So there is at least some scientific support of the stress can lead to the back problems as well. And it may have been, all right, it's time to play. And it may have been, I'm overwhelmed by this idea. And then his body physically reacts to that with, hey, your back hurts again. And now you're on the sidelines. So just, it's one of those things we're going to learn more and more about this. Yeah. And we'll find out, over the next, probably several months, where this is. But I just hope for the best for Ben Simmons, that he gets this all sorted and we can see him play basketball again. Because I struggle to believe he is at a point where he just is like, man, I don't want to play.
No,
I'll just take my money.
I don't think this is him wanting to relax or something and just get paid to not play. I don't think that's what.
Yeah, there's other stuff. There's other stuff that. I've said it before, I'll say it again, you can be skeptical of. There's stuff to be critical of as well, because I do think some of his behavior and some of the things he said and done are not great. And that I think leads to this whole challenges with believing him and all that stuff. I think to some extent he's kind of made his own bed with this, so that is the challenge. But yeah, let's hope he gets right and this gets sorted
at
out.
Its core, there's a general reaction from people that I've seen where it's well, he's not working. Why should he get paid? Like, if I don't go to work, I don't get paid, right? So there's that to it. Damn millennials wanting to not work and get paid and all this kind of stuff. But I think it goes a lot deeper than just that. And this isn't totally it's a little bit reminiscent of the Bucks situation with Larry Sanders back in the day. But obviously there's some key differences here, but this is probably the most high profile situation we've seen of something.
Oh, without a doubt. Like yeah. The player, the money he makes, the teams he's been on, how good they've been, being, title contender, all that. So yeah, absolutely. 100%.
All right, let's move on. We need to talk about the play-in tournament, which I think is something that's going to stay. I think that's sticking around. The NBA, it's been successful. It's been a lot of fun, frankly. And look, if you're the 7th seed or the 8th seed, you're going to complain. But I think for everybody else and for the league as a whole, it's been a positive thing. I think it's reduced tanking. It's done everything it needs to do in order to bring excitement to some teams, some fan bases that wouldn't normally have that in the traditional sense. So I do like the play-in tournament in general. I think it's going to stay. I think it's been a great addition, but we saw back in the bubble that there was a threshold you had to hit. If you were X number of games back, then I think it was 4 back, then you could no longer, you were no longer qualifying for the play-in.
Well, more than
4, more than 4 games back, then you didn't qualify for the play-in. And some teams are saying, maybe we need to go back to that system so you don't wind up with a 10 seed sneaking through that's like 10 games back of the 7 seed, and the 7 seed gets bumped because of 2 bad games.
Then that's I'm in agreement. If we're going to continue to push that the 82 games need to matter, so that people will actually watch these games and care about them, like frankly, like we do, then they should
Right.
matter. Like it should not turn into, oh hey, the 7th seed, had a bad shooting night and with 10 seconds left, a player rolled his ankle. They lost, and now that key guy can't play the next one, and now you're out of the playoffs entirely. When a team you were 12 games ahead of is in. I get it with the whole well, win your games. I really do. I do understand that, but on the flip side of it, I really do feel like it's like the regular season just has to mean something. So yeah, so I am in a point where it's yeah, this has to be important. So I'm in favor of that. Fine, figure it out. Go back, look historically over years of data to figure out where should we do the games back cut off and then cut it off and go. And if it means we don't get a couple playing games, we don't get a couple playing games. So what? It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, and we saw this play out with the Clippers, the Pelicans, that situation. The Spurs being 30 games back, and the Minnesota Timberwolves are 18, and yet they've got to play each other in the first round, 12-game difference. So yeah, that's something to look at for the future. Again, the play-in tournament, don't think that is going anywhere. I guess last thing, just to kind of finish things out, the early entry candidates are now in.
Yeah,
are now in for we can start talking a little bit of NBA draft.
We can, we're starting to get a sense of where this is going to go. So it was on Sunday was the deadline to declare for the NBA draft as an early entry candidate. It's a little wonky again for a second year. Seniors have to declare as an early entry candidate because the NCAA rather granted all players additional years of eligibility because of the pandemic impacted seasons. So seniors did have to declare. Normally in a regular environment, they would not. They would just be auto eligible. In this situation, but 283 total players. That's down from last year, about 20-ish players or so. Low number of international early entry players, only 36. And there's only a couple that are projected as even pseudo high draft picks. So we've seen a little bit of a change there after years of international players kind of not, I don't want to say dominating, but being heavily in the mix in the lottery. So yeah, 283 players. Now, the dates that become important now, the first one that will come up is June 1st. That is the NCAA date to return to school and retain your eligibility. If you don't, you'll lose your NCAA eligibility to play. Then June 13th at 5 p.m. for everybody else with this. And then June 23rd is the NBA draft itself. So 10 days ahead. It's always 10 days ahead. The players can go out. And then we have just in a couple of weeks, we have the draft lottery is coming up. That is on the 17th. So we're about 3 weeks out on that too. So we're a lot of draft stuff coming. So the lottery will come first, then that NCAA date, June 1st. But we're starting to get a good sense of who will be in the draft. And I do like that they made this change to allow these kids to declare, go through the process, start to get an understanding of where they might be at draft wise. And then we move into, letting them go back to school if they need to, or whatever the case may be. I just think that's best for everybody.
By the way, off topic, we have the NFL draft starting tomorrow. Do you pay a lot of attention to that?
So as a Patriots fan, I am in a position where I do, and I get super excited, and I read all the mock drafts like I was doing it to myself today, but also knowing they're just going to trade back and pick up like a second rounder, 2/3 and a 7th for their first and a 5th or something like that. It's what they do every single year. Most years they pick late, so I'm usually up late watching those games, and then we go late there. But I get frustrated with it every year because I fall in love with all these guys that people tell me I should like, and then I do, and then they're gone, and it's like, well, there it is. So yeah.
Well, I'm excited for it. I always, I'm big into fantasy football and all that. So watching, the new rookies and where they wind up, it's always a lot of fun. But again, the NBA draft, which is going to be our main focus, is coming up. So it's almost like this is like the appetizer for the NBA draft, from my perspective anyway, that I get to kind of really dig into draft stuff for the NFL right now, and then NBA coming down the road. I'm really excited for that. Draft time is always an exciting time, and then, right after that, you get free agency and all the fun. You basically get, it's like the finals end and everything, and then you get a month or so of just fun stuff happening around the NBA in terms of the transaction sense before everything really kind of calms down for, a month and a half or something like that.
Yeah, when I was way more into football, I always thought the NFL draft hit like at the perfect time when it was how do I put this? It like just as I was really missing football. I was like, oh, hey, here's a little taste of football. I'm with it. I was super into it last year because I was hoping the Patriots would pick a quarterback. They did. They got Mac Jones. He's, destined to be the second best quarterback, maybe player of all time, next to Tom Brady. So that'll be great. But yeah, I do still like it. It's but I liked it better when it was on the weekends. Though,
oh yeah.
To be completely honest, like I thought it was partially too because it didn't conflict with any NBA playoffs.
So long.
It is.
10 minutes between picks. Yeah. It takes so long to get through it. And I mean, obviously going multiple days, but even just pick to pick, that's tough. And then when it conflicts with NBA playoff games, that I agree with you on that. I'd prefer to see it, during the day, and let's get through this again. You got to settle in for the NFL draft. It's a long experience.
Yeah, I will say too, I really liked the to flip it back to the NBA. This is now too, once the early entry list is out, I can really now, this is kind of my like subtle nudge, start locking in and really starting to learn these kids. Yeah. So I start now what I'll do is I reach out to the people who really know, and then I'm like, all right, who are the best, like who's got the best kind of top 100 rankings, mock drafts, all that stuff. I just because it's me and I'm a spreadsheet nerd, I'll put together like a consensus mock draft where I'll put together, 5 or 6 of them and get a sense of, all right, these are where all these guys fall. And then I'll lock in, and it's usually the top 30 to 60 guys if I have time that I'll try to spend at least some time, finding film on. And
only 60 guys.
I'll have other names,
sure.
But I'll have other names, but actually sit down and try to watch highlights and games and things like that and thank God for YouTube now, man, because these people are, they pump these things out. You can watch, clips of just about anybody you need to. So, so that's a lot of fun too. So yeah, I'm, this is just, it's another step in the process of, all right, start figuring out who these guys are that are coming in, because clearly it's, it's super duper important.
Going to be on the floor before you know it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And a reminder, 58 picks this year.
That's right.
2 kids go undrafted.
Feel bad for those 2 guys that don't wind up getting their names called.
Yeah, I wish they do it differently. Figure out a different way.
Those guys, the undrafted guys, like you see, as soon as the draft ends, boom, like almost instantly, undrafted free agent so-and-so signs with this team, right? Or is joining this team for Summer League. So I don't think
going on a 2-way.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to, like, whoever those 2 guys are.
No,
they'll still wind up getting their opportunity, but just to not hear your name called when you would have previously, I think that matters.
Yep. Yeah, and it's always fun when, some dude and it's like the 57th pick happens to be there and he comes out of the stands as the 57th pick and is up on the stage. Like, that's always fun. Like that's I love the NBA draft too, because it's one night.
Yeah.
Like that whole day. That day is almost kind of like trade deadline too, kind of almost, right? Like it turns into just a million rumors all day long, and then you get that little break when it's like, all right, everybody stop, everybody goes eats dinner, chills for a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, and then everybody gets settled in, and then it's just fun from the rest of the night on and stuff. So we'll do some fun stuff with the draft too. We'll do some create a mock draft maybe, or just draft things, questions, how many trades, and all that stuff. We'll have some fun with it, but yeah, we'll create something, have a little bit of fun with the front runners here.
That's right.
Front
That's
office.
right. Just remember Vontae Mack no matter what, and then we'll be good. All right, everybody. All right, front runners. Thank you guys for joining us. A little bit of a long show today, but we had plenty of things to get through. Didn't have a show yesterday, so
might have got sidetracked.
We did get sidetracked with Doctor Strange a little bit there. That happens, but that's okay.
Well, that's why you come here. That's why you guys love this show.
That's right. Thank you, everybody. We do appreciate all the ratings and reviews we've been getting over on Apple Podcasts. Appreciate those. If you guys wouldn't mind, please make sure you continue to do that. Give us that 5-star rating if you haven't already, and make sure you toss in a review. Love reading those. And then, of course, over here on the NBA Front Office YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe and then turn on those notifications. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.